your health promotion coordinator, and we're here today to make overnight oats. So it's kind of funny because we're making breakfast at dinner or at dinner time, nighttime, but we're not actually eating them until the morning. The nice thing about overnight oats is you can prep a lot, or I guess I'd say 4 to 5 in one sitting. Stick them in your fridge and have them ready to go for the following 4 to 5 days, and you just grab and go and have your breakfast. A lot of people often complain that they'd rather get in an extra 15 minutes of sleep rather than get up and make breakfast. I can't say I blame them. I think we all enjoy our sleep, but it is really important to jumpstart your day by having breakfast, and having a heart-healthy breakfast is even better. So we're gonna go ahead and I'll take you through the ingredients that we're using. It's really simple, it's very flexible, and you can make it your own depending on what you have in your house. Okay, so to start off, the star of this recipe are our oats. I'm using, actually Quaker makes rolled overnight oats. I just found them at Target and I was pretty excited, so I decided I'd try them. If you can't find rolled overnight oats, you can definitely find thick rolled oats, or you can use steel cut oats. I just recommend staying away from instant oatmeal. That's going to become really mushy overnight. Part of the perks of instant oatmeal is that you make that and within like 2 minutes it's good to go. So if it sits overnight, it just becomes mush and no one wants to eat that. I then have our berries, so these will be our toppings, and we're actually gonna put the berries on in the morning. Whenever you are dealing with fresh produce, you definitely wanna make sure that you go ahead and wash them. So I will thoroughly wash both the blackberries and the strawberries. You can make this your own by adding different berries. So if you find blueberries, I didn't find any blueberries in the store, but you can add blueberries. If you don't even like berries, you could add bananas instead. You could use apples, kind of whatever you want. I like to have a little bit of crunch to my fruit, so that's why I add it on in the morning. But if you wanted to, I guess you could add it on at night. It's gonna be a little mushier, and so I personally don't like that, and that's up to everybody's personal preference. I then will be using Greek yogurt. You can choose to use plain Greek yogurt. You want to make sure that when you do use the yogurt, it is Greek because it's a little thicker, so it'll help build up the thickness of the overnight oats. I'm using vanilla, and with that I won't be adding honey or maple syrup as a sweetener. If you use plain Greek yogurt, I do recommend adding in a little bit of honey the following day, or even some maple syrup, just because Greek yogurt is a little bit more tart in flavor, and so you don't want to be puckering as you're eating your overnight oats. Then we will be using oat milk. Again, this is up to personal preference. I had oat milk, which is why we're using it. You can use any kind of milk, so almond, coconut, cashew, flax milk. You can even choose to use dairy milk. If you do, I recommend that you choose a low-fat to non-fat option just to help in the heart health benefits. But if you are someone that wants to choose the dairy-free option, you can go ahead and use oat milk. Back to the yogurt really quick. If you do have a intolerance to dairy or you're lactose intolerant, by all means you can use a plant-based yogurt too. I'm just kind of going back and forth today and using both. And then I will also be topping this off with some pecan halves. And so I just got the Target brand. That's what they had on sale. It really doesn't matter what kind of pecan halves you buy. I just bought the ones that were cheapest. All right, and then I have our liquid measuring cup for our oat milk, and then I have our half cup measuring cup for our oats. And then I am going to attempt to make it bougie the way you see on Pinterest or on all these bloggers, and make it in a mason jar. If you don't have a mason jar, that's completely fine. You can make it in any container. The perk about making it in a mason jar is that you know that you're having one serving and it's really quick. You just grab it and go the following day. Even after you put your toppings on, you just kind of close it up and go along with your day. You can stick it in your backpack and take it to class with you. And then last but not least, I will also be adding a dash of cinnamon. This is kind of a last minute addition just because I personally like cinnamon. If you're not a cinnamon fan, that's completely fine. You don't have to add it into your overnight oats. Okay, so when dealing with food, it's always important to make sure that you wash your hands. The CDC recommends washing your hands with warm soapy water for 20 seconds. This is important whether we're in the middle of a pandemic or not. When you are washing your hands, you want to make sure that you really get in between your fingers, underneath your fingernails, and around your wrists. So I went ahead and already did this, but I just want to make sure that I drive home that message. Warm soapy water, 20 seconds, around the wrists, in between the fingers, and underneath the fingernails. Even if you're just making the food for yourself, it's good practice, so that way you minimize the amount of germs that you ingest. Okay, so to start off, I'm going to take my oats and open them. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you really want to make sure that you use either thick rolled oats or steel cut oats. You want to avoid using instant oats just because those are going to get really mushy really quickly. They won't last overnight. All right, so I'm just going to pour a half cup of oats in my measuring cup. Good thing I wiped out my counter because I am spilling about as many oats as I'm getting into this measuring cup. All right, so we have half cup of oats, and I'm just gonna go ahead and pour it in the mason jar. And now I have 4 mason jars, so I will be repeating this process 4 times. Okay, since I was actually spilling more oats than I was getting in the mason jar, I have gotten a bowl that I'm gonna put the mason jar in, and that way pour the oats over that. Hopefully will eliminate a lot of this extra spillage. So oats are actually really beneficial to incorporate in your diet. They are full of fiber, so they help you feel full quicker. And they help prevent overeating. A lot of times when people eat, they don't eat a high fiber diet, and so they end up not feeling that satiation, and they end up overeating. Oats, as most of Quaker Oats and other oatmeal brands have, they can help reduce cholesterol, and that's all as part of a heart healthy diet. So it's not necessarily the oats on their own, but incorporated with other things such as more fruits. A lot of people, when they do eat oatmeal, they do tend to clean up their diet as a whole. And actually, if you think about it, no junk food really tends to contain oats. Oats tend to be found in more heart healthy diets or more heart healthy foods anyway. The nice thing about oats, and you can look to see it on the container, they are 100% whole grain, so they really haven't been altered very much when they are being processed. You get basically the entire oat product, and the grain, it hasn't been stripped. So when people talk about oatmeal and oats and how it helps lower cholesterol, it actually helps lower your LDL cholesterol, also known as the bad cholesterol. Scientifically speaking, LDL stands for low density lipoprotein. There are actually 2 types of cholesterol. There's HDL, which is your high density lipoprotein, and then your LDL. You want to make sure that you're always trying to get more HDL. That's better for you. Your LDL is that bad cholesterol, and so that's what they talk about oatmeal or oats actually helping to lower. Okay, so I have officially filled up my mason jars with the half cup of oatmeal. And then I will go ahead and begin putting in my oat milk. So you're gonna use a half cup of oat milk. Again, you can choose to use any milk which you prefer. The one thing about most plant-based milks, including oat milk, is you do wanna shake it before you use it. Make sure the lid is screwed on tight. The last thing you wanna do is right before bed have to clean up a spill, but remember, don't cry over spilt milk. All right, and so we're gonna go ahead and measure a half cup, and right now I'm holding it up, but when you are measuring liquids, you do wanna then place the liquid measuring cup on the counter and look to make sure that the meniscus is right at the half cup. So I have demonstrated that earlier in some of my other videos. All right, so this is exactly a half cup of oat milk that I'm just gonna go ahead and add into the mason jar. If you don't have milk on hand, you can go ahead and make this with water. It's not gonna be as creamy, but it will still get the job done in helping provide an area or a base for the oats to expand. One thing that I like to do, just because I do sometimes go through my milk quickly and I don't always have a trip scheduled to the grocery store, I'll buy milk from the refrigerated section and obviously aim to use that first, but then I'll get a carton of shelf-stable milk that I can use later on. When we first went into quarantine, I actually didn't do that, and then I remember wanting to make something and I didn't have any milk on me, so I was kind of bummed. I guess you could say I learned my lesson from that experience. So that's my tip that I recommend. If you do use a shelf-stable milk, the second you open it and you actually use it, you want to make sure that you then put it in the refrigerator, because at that point it does need to be refrigerated. Okay, so our mason jars have their oat milk in them. And I am gonna go ahead and shut this and get it back in the fridge. Okay, so next up we're gonna add in our Greek yogurt. If you remember, I said you could also choose to use plain Greek yogurt. If you do use plain Greek yogurt, you're gonna wanna make sure that you definitely add in a sweetener like honey or maple syrup. Again, since this is heart healthy, I recommend using one of those two to sweeten it. But since I am using vanilla yogurt, I will just be using this. The Greek yogurt helps to thicken it. It just gives it that consistency. If you don't have Greek yogurt, but you have chia seeds on hand, you can also choose to use those, as they will also help to thicken and absorb some of the liquid. So I'm just gonna take a spoon and measure out a half cup of yogurt to add into each mason jar. I really love Greek yogurt just because it is actually a high protein option. It has more protein than traditional yogurt. So on average, Greek yogurt has around 11 to 13 grams of protein in it. And so if you are someone that, say, likes to work out in the morning, this is a really great post-workout snack. I seem to be making a mess. Like, I have yogurt on the edge of this mason jar. I keep spooning it out with the wrong hand. My goodness. You know, it's been a long day when overnight oats become a bit of a struggle. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and repeat this process for the other 3 mason jars. So we're just about to add our yogurt into our last mason jar. The nice thing about these overnight oats is they basically cover just about every aspect of my plate. And so with my plate, you really should try to make your plates mirror that. So it's found on the USDA's website, but it shows you how many grains you should have in your diet, vegetables, fruits, dairy, protein. And so we get some dairy and our protein from the yogurt. We get lots of fruits from the strawberries and the blackberries, or whatever fruit you choose to use. You also get some extra protein from the nuts that you might use. You get your healthy fats there. And then the oats count as your grain or your carbohydrates, so to give you energy to help get you through the day. Okay, so at this point, I am going to take a spoon and just mix everything together in the mason jar, really thoroughly incorporate it. You definitely want to make sure that you kind of break up the yogurt. It might seem a little chunky at first and almost kind of layered, but we're not making a parfait right now. We're making overnight oats. And so once it's thoroughly mixed together, you can just take it and put your lid on it, and then put it in your fridge. And when you wake up in the morning, you just have to add your toppings. So this one's thoroughly mixed. If you were to make this during the day and you wanted to have it later on, I would recommend keeping it in the fridge for at least 4 hours to make sure that everything fully gets absorbed. So you're just gonna take your jar, And then mine's a mason jar, so it has the 2 separate pieces in it. Make sure you really seal it. And then screw the lid on and put it in the fridge and then take it out in the morning. So we're gonna keep it in the fridge, and I will join you tomorrow morning and show you what it looks like when we add our toppings to it. If you have a little bit of energy at night and you want to kind of get a head start on prepping some of the fruit, I recommend going ahead and washing your berries. You can also, if you just have regular fruit at home so you don't have berries, if you have bananas or apples, you can go ahead and maybe get those laid out for you. I definitely recommend not chopping them the night before. Apples and bananas will both turn brown, and it's normal. It's just the oxidation, but it doesn't look too appealing or appetizing. So I would recommend just having those ready for you to cut in the morning. So I will join you tomorrow morning, and we will go ahead and prepare our fruit and nuts and cinnamon, and we'll be able to enjoy our overnight oats. Have a great night. See you in the morning. Good morning, UND community. So we're back. It is now officially morning, and our overnight oats have been sitting. So here they are in our mason jar. It is a lot thicker. Like if I shake it, it is more of a gelatinous texture. So it's time for us to add our toppings in because it's time for me to have breakfast. I always enjoy having breakfast, just it helps kickstart my day. I feel like I have a lot more energy after I eat breakfast. So here's our jar, and I have already gone ahead and sliced some strawberries. So I'm just gonna make sure that they equal a 1/2 cup. And then I really recommend using a 1/2 cup of, using a full cup of fruit. I'm mixing it up and doing a 1/2 cup of strawberries and a 1/2 cup of blackberries. It is definitely going to be a heaping cup because I love fruit, but there is my 1/2 cup of strawberries. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those in. I do recommend periodically mixing it. I mean, it can sit all on top, but if you want to, I guess, be able to fit more into the mason jar, you might have to stir it around a little bit. For anyone that struggles to eat fruit in the morning or actually eat breakfast at all, this is a pretty easy way to make sure that you get your breakfast in. Okay, so as you can see, the strawberries are all on top. I am gonna just mix it in to kind of give myself more room for my other toppings. But this is a great way to make sure that you get in a little bit extra fruit. A lot of Americans tend to fall short in getting their recommended amount of fruits and vegetables in their diet, more so with the vegetable piece, but the fruit as well. All right, so I have incorporated it. You can't really see the strawberries, you kind of see one there poking through. And now I'm gonna go ahead and add in a 1/2 cup of blackberries. So as I mentioned yesterday, you definitely want to make sure that you wash any produce that you're using. I did that last night while the oats were in the fridge. I just rinsed them under some cold water. So here is our cup of blackberries. Again, this is heaping, but I really like my fruit, so that's okay. I'm gonna add that into the jar. If you aren't a fruit fan, and I know that there are people out there that aren't fruit fans, a lot of people say that they don't really taste it when it's in oatmeal, so that's a great way of sneaking fruit into your diet. But you could make this with just some nuts and cinnamon, and then maybe if later on have like a banana during the day. All right, this is getting pretty full. Probably needed a bigger mason jar, to be honest. All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add in our pecans. Here's a 1/4 cup of pecans, and I'm just gonna have to place those gently around since this is brimming over. Might have to take the rest of the pecans in a to-go bag. Alright, so last but not least, I'm just gonna sprinkle a dash of cinnamon on top. And so, if I can get the lid back on the cinnamon, that would be great. So I can cover it. Alright. So here's what it looks like. Okay, so here is our finished product of overnight oats. I was a little ambitious, but I couldn't get the full 4th cup of pecans in. I'll just take these in a little baggie with me to go. But this is what it looks like. So you can see we have our strawberries in here, our blackberries, our pecans. As I mentioned earlier, this is a great breakfast to just grab and go on your way to class. If you have an early morning workout, this is great too because you do get some of your protein from the Greek yogurt and the nuts. So it's a great way to refuel after a workout. And it also it has carbohydrates from a variety of different things like the fruit and the oats, giving you energy to get through the day. Well, I hope watching this video is giving you the inspiration to eat breakfast and to try to make something overnight so that way you can hit that snooze button a few extra times and still be able to eat and grab it on the go. Let us know how you make your overnight oats. Do you use steel cut oats? Do you use different fruits? Maybe you omit the nuts or you add almonds. Send us a picture of yours to be featured on our story at UND Wellness. See you next time. Bye.